Hi, it's Brian for the Brian Christian Guy Show. We are talking with Dr. Craig Carter today. Good morning, Craig.
Hi, Brian. Nice to be with you.
Likewise. Craig is a research professor at Tyndale University in Toronto, Ontario. And Craig, we're just going to discuss a little bit today about um, Charlie Kirk's situation, if you don't mind. I know that situation was in the States, but more so as how it affects us as Christians. And if you could give me a little bit of your insight regarding that, I'd appreciate that very much. So, if we could just start with, were you aware of Charlie Kirk before this situation?
I was somewhat aware of him, not really, never really followed him, but I kind of, I know about I'm pretty fairly plugged into American politics and American Christianity. I write for World Opinions, which is a magazine coming out of North Carolina. The World Opinions part is edited by Al Mohler, managing editor Andrew Walker, and we do commentary. There's about 30 or so writers who produce stories on current news events, and these are opinion pieces. And so, in the course of just knowing about um, politics and the role of Christians in politics and some of the issues. I was vaguely aware of Charlie Kirk, but I wasn't really following him closely or terribly wrapped up in Turning Point USA as an organization. It's very new, It's just been built in the last 10 years, and it is has become a major factor. It really became an important factor in the last presidential election. Charlie Kirk was very involved. I would say Charlie Kirk and Elon Musk were two of the people who most responsible for the Republicans winning that election.
Really? Wow.
Uh, because Charlie was really important in getting out the youth vote. Elon Musk was very important in the get out the vote movement in general, especially in Pennsylvania. And I think that the organization had sort of stepped into a new prominence as a result of that. Apparently, Charlie Kirk could have had any job in the administration that he wanted, but he felt his calling was to build this organization. And I think it's a very, as I've listened to clips from his work on campus and listened to people talking about him and listening to his getting some insight into what he was doing. I think what he was doing was almost unique among Christians today. He was going on to secular university campuses, and many of them had a chapter of Turning Point USA. And this chapter would invite him to come, but he would not just speak to the local small club of conservative Christians, but he would be going into a venue where there would be hostility and where there would be uh, people attacking him and people coming to from other points of view, and he would debate and engage. And when you people don't realize today how rare and unusual it is to have a real debate on a university campus. Um, People who went to university 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, um, probably would be shocked to find how closed campuses have become, how monolithic they've become ideologically. And whereas people used to be debated and attacked and disagreed with. Now they are not just being disagreed with or debated, but they are being prohibited from speaking. And so studies have shown that a very high percentage of university faculty in the United States, and I'm sure it's even more pronounced in Canada, are left wing. So in class, students tend to get a left wing perspective on everything. And so Charlie Kirk showing up one day and speaking from an unashamedly conservative position was a novelty. And it was something that people should be celebrating the fact that somebody was doing this. Somebody should, all of society, no matter whether you're left, right, or center, should be celebrating the idea that college students were being exposed to a serious debate that they wouldn't normally be exposed to. And yet, that's not the case. The left has become uh, very well, as they have taken increasingly revolutionary and extreme positions on a whole host of issues. The more extreme they become, the less arguments they have to make that normal people will be impressed by. So without the ability to reason and argue logically, the only way they have to enforce their ideological position is through coercion and intimidation and even violence. So uh, the fact that a Christian like him was going into these university campuses and having these kinds of no holds barred debates, presenting a point of view that many students had never heard before, um, was a threat to people. And this was uh, and I think that the general attitude of we don't debate with white supremacists, racists, fascists, etc., um, contributed to a mindset that ended up leading a young man who was very embedded in this kind of way of thinking to end up shooting him. And that should be a big concern to everybody because it means that debate and discussion is dying, and it's going and when a society can't have debates anymore, then the only thing left is violence to settle disputes. And so we're heading toward more violence. And if this is and if the way that people have reacted to Charlie Kirk's murder is any indication, um, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better.
Yeah, I saw some people online from the left actually cheering the whole situation, and then I saw other leftist Democrats in the states who were appalled by their own party affiliate party members, Democratic voters celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, and they were actually saying they were leaving the Democrat Party because of it. Now, on a side note from that, what do you think this um, uh, execution, for lack of a better word, is how do you think it's affecting the young men, or how do you think his conversations on these campuses affect the young men, young women as well, I guess, that we're hearing him speak?
Well, I think he was a hero to them, to many young men. After 75 years of feminism since the 1960s, when second wave feminism really got off the ground, um, men have been sidelined, marginalized, mocked, and despised by society in many ways. As the younger generation comes up, um, men are realizing that they are expected to behave in ways that are not natural. Um, it's natural for men to be to have a desire to form a family, to protect that family, to provide, to have a role. And increasingly, that role is seemingly obsolete. It's no longer needed. The problem then is, what do you do with men who come of age in a society where the unique gifting of men is no longer required? And many men are willing and uh, content to become, feminist men, to just sort of renounce all claim to uniqueness and just become unisex, to become another person like all the other people in society, but not really distinctively masculine in any particular way. But young men struggle with hormones and with ambition and with desire. And so either those young men are going to be um, they're either going to have that ambition, that striving for competition and so on is either going to get channeled into something positive. Used to get channeled into the institution of marriage. That's less and less happening. Dating is down. Even sex among young people is down. Marriages are happening later and less frequently. Children are coming later in those marriages. So, as in this situation, men are either going to be plunged into nihilism. I have no meaning. My life has no meaning. What's the point? Or they're going to um, end up being gullible and being drawn into some kind of right-wing violent subculture on the internet. Neither of these outcomes are good. So obviously, if the 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 challenge for many young men is that many of them are actually turning to the church, turning to Christ, and becoming Christian. And and part of it is this sense of meaninglessness, this sense of purposelessness that they experience growing up. So either they go into right-wing violence or they go into nihilism and despair, and their lives are consumed by pornography and drugs, or they turn to Christ. But the traditional way that males have been integrated into society is through marriage and family. And as that declines, um, we are we're increasingly in a situation where we're going to see more and more extreme. Men will be extreme in their late teens and early 20s. They will be extreme in some way. They may get extremely wrapped up in forming a family. They may get extremely wrapped up in some right-wing violent cult. They may get extreme in plunging into despair. But whatever they do, many of them it could be positive, it could be negative, but they're going to do something that is extreme. I think that the assassination of Charlie Kirk um, caused a lot of Christians to say to themselves, um, that could have been me. Because a lot of Christians look at Charlie Kirk and they say, well, what did he believe? Was he some kind of wild-eyed extremist who believed in supporting Hitler and being was he racially prejudiced? Was he misogynist? No, he was just a conservative Christian who 40 if you go back even one generation, 30, 40 years ago, almost nothing he believed would be considered exceptional. There would have been leading politicians in both political parties in the US who believed the same things. So this means that a lot of people have the feeling that this could have been me, which then prompts two different reactions. Some people say, well, we better pull back from society. We better keep our head down. We better not speak. We better not uh, do anything to antagonize people because if we do, we could end up getting shot. On the other hand, other people um, are kind of inspired to rush into the gap and to keep his legacy going and do what he was doing. Um, if the church does not channel the energy and passions of young men into positive, constructive, culture building work, then that energy will either dissipate or be channeled into something evil. And so I think that in that sense, the murder of Kirk is a call, it's a signal, it's a sign. It's a sign of the times. We need to say, well, given the way the times are, what what can we do? What should we do? What should we be preaching? And what should we be calling young men to do? And what kind of vision should we put out there for them? What should we be worried about? These are the questions that arise out of this.
Do you think that the Jordan Peterson phenomena, for lack of a better word, I guess, was part of that direction to adding uh, a goal or a purpose for young men?
Yes, I think so. Jordan Peterson's had an enormous cultural influence, and his his influence has been almost all positive. The fact that the left despises people like Peterson says more about the left than it does about Peterson. I don't think Peterson has yet become a Christian, at least not publicly. But he is like, there used to be many people like Jordan Peterson. By that, I mean, there used to be a lot of politicians and cultural leaders of various kinds who weren't exactly personally professing Christians, but they were often married to a Christian, often had been brought up in a Christian home, they had respect for the church. They had been conditioned by a general Christian ethos, especially when it came to morality. And those people were very important in holding society together. They have become increasingly rare. And so Jordan Peterson stands out now as somebody unusual. But in, 75 years ago, there weren't necessarily people who had his gifts in speaking and writing, but there were people who shared his approach to life, to be found all through society. And those people are the ones that are disappearing. Society is polarizing into extremes, and that middle. So you have on one side you have actual believing Christians who still uphold Christian morality. Then you have the left, which is anti-Christian and is attacking Christian morality. There used to be a center that was big enough so that neither of these two were totally dominant. Christianity shaped society in general ways, but it didn't have sort of a tight theocratic control over every detail of society. The left existed, but it didn't have power either. The middle was this moderating, mediating middle ground that was able to maintain social cohesion without being extreme in either way. It's the middle that's disappearing. You talk about the Democratic Party in the US, the same process is happening in the Liberal Party in Canada, whereby the Liberal Party used to be a centrist party, a center left party, the NDP to its left, the Conservatives to its right. Now it's become more extreme left than the NDP. So
Yes.
this is a tremendous change because what it does is it leaves the middle empty. And a society without a moderate middle, is in trouble. You see the same thing happening in the US. The Democratic Party increasingly is being taken over by the hard left. I mean, even the old line leaders like Pelosi and Schumer and people like that, they still have to um, they still have to do what the squad, AOC and the extremists say, or they lose power. They are slowly losing grip on the Democratic Party. If John Kennedy, for example, was to be was to come back and go into politics today, he would undoubtedly be a Republican. There's no way he could function in today's Democratic Party. So as this middle evaporates, the potential for conflict increases. So yeah, I think Peterson has been, in some ways, he's a dinosaur. He's the throwback to a time when the middle was the dominant part of society.
Yeah, I know Jordan Peterson's daughter, Michaela. She recently married a Christian. She has become a Christian herself. Peterson's wife is a Catholic, and actually, Jordan is, as you said, he's professed a lot of things and he's almost there, one of those almost there. But recently, he's been very unwell and he's been in a hospital for quite a while. And I'm not sure the update on that. But Michaela was on her on her podcast saying that she was stepping away for a while because he's been very ill. So, in that regard, we should probably be praying for him. I mean, I've been praying for him for a long time. So, if you have any final comments, you could wrap up, Craig. I'd appreciate that very much.
Well, I would just say to Christians that that if you well, I'll say two things. First of all, when I was in college centuries ago, it seems like in the 1970s, our university group brought a Francis Schaeffer film to campus, and we showed it over a period of weeks. And the Francis Schaeffer film was whatever happened to the whatever happened. Oh, I forget the title of it. It was his history of Western culture film, and he made predictions about the future as to what was going to happen in terms of abortion and euthanasia and various things. And all of these things have now come true, and it's gotten one beyond what he prophesied. So I just read a book uh, this recently by James Montgomery Boyce, written in 1985, where he predicts many things that have also come true. So we are in a period of social change. So the first thing is change is happening. Second thing is um, if you maintain your Christian faith and you maintain your moral positions and you continue to believe as you have believed over the past 20, 30 years, you will increasingly be seen as extreme. This is because the society is changing so quickly and the pace of change has speeded up immensely. I believe 2014 was the year that the majority of North American teenagers had smartphones for the first time. Um, since about the 2008 financial crash, since about 2010, 2015, the legalization of same-sex marriage in the United States, around that time, 2008, 2010, 2015, we entered into a period of rapid social change, which was speeded up by COVID in 2020, so that society is now changing so fast that you will either change with it or you will become increasingly a minority and increasingly regarded as the extreme. What I'm saying is there is no safety in the center. There is, if you try to be centrist on everything, you will simply be moving left at a very rapid pace. So I guess think about that. People need to give some thought to, how am I going to arrange my life so that I can maintain my Christian faithfulness? And how am I going to survive in a culture that is not getting more friendly to Christianity and is not even staying neutral toward Christianity, but is becoming increasingly overtly hostile to Christianity? How am I going to, what's my strategy? And I think there are many things we can talk about that Christians can do. But if you don't, if any person right now who's sitting there thinking, this is normal, this is fine, because they look back to some period in the past and they say, well, it's always been bad. There's always been hostility to Christianity and society's always had sin. And so it's no different today. I would just say, well, no, it is different today. The difference is not that they were perfect and we're sinful. The difference is the speed of the change. That's what's taking people by surprise. And I think you're going to see a lot of churches that you thought were solid are going to fall into accepting the LGBTQ agenda. For example, that's one big change that's happening. Um, I think you're going to see churches start accepting euthanasia and holding services for euthanasia people committing euthanasia and their families. You're going to see it normalized. I think you're going to see um, reproduction in laboratories normalized as the majority way that reproduction happens. These are these are changes that are huge and they have gigantic implications, and they're going to sneak up on you before you know it. And what I'm saying is, people, I guess my message is simple. Be aware that we live in extraordinary times. And if you go back in history, there have been periods in history where change happened at an extraordinary rate. Anybody who studies the Reformation, for example, knows that the period from 1517 to 1550 was everything in Europe changed, from politics to religion to morals to um, literacy, like everything, a sudden change. And then there are other periods where it's very stable and nothing changes for a long time. Um, so it's important to know what kind of period we live in. And we live in a period of rapid change, and it's not change for the better. And so we need to really give some thought and prayer to how we plan to respond to that.
Well, I appreciate that very much. That's some great insight, and hopefully, people will take this to heart, think about it deeply, think about it, and pray about it as well. And I appreciate so much this time this morning you've given me, and it's been just an enlightening interview for me. It's great to have a conversation with you like this.
Okay, well, it's been nice talking to you, Brian.
All right, take care now.